I'm not the only
It's
one.
not as straightforward as you would think.
Why did I have so many boxes and so many lines?
Okay.
Little to no bracket level experience. We should
know how
probably
this
pull up a
works.
visual.
What?
Yeah, that's how the bracket works. Look up a bracket.
Welcome back. My name is Erin.
I'm Elena. It is bracket time, baby.
This time we're going to do it correctly because if you follow Elena's reading journal, then you know that she royally effed up her bracket in the journal. So we're having
It's
to make a
hard.
video so she can finally have the bracket information she needs.
This is the redemption bracket.
In your defense, I tried to create a bracket for this video and found it challenging.
Oh, good. Thanks. I'm glad I'm not the only
It's
one.
not as straightforward as you would think. Sneak peek, are you putting a bracket in this year's journal?
I am putting
You
a bracket.
are. Okay.
But if I screw it up, I'm pasting those pages together and you will never know. All right. Each month of last year, we have chosen the best book of that month. These aren't necessarily the best books ever, but they are the best book from January, February, and so on of 2024. We will put them head to head until we find the best book of the year overall. We also decided not to repeat authors. So if we were reading a series and read individual books from that series in different months, I only picked one book from that series to be on the final list. Otherwise, half the list would be Brandon Sanderson and Tamsin Muir, and that's not fun.
No, but it is probably more accurate.
But yeah.
I have a few honorable mentions.
Oh, what? We could do honorable mentions?
Just because as I was preparing for this, I realized basically I had some months that were incredible and there would be like multiple 5-star reads. And then there were some months where like the highest rated book was 3. And I don't know if that's my mood or if it's the books, but it made this bracket really interesting because...
Yeah, that's a good point. I did have some of that.
Yeah, so like some of the ones in this bracket I would not have in my top 10.
Yeah,
but
same.
It was the best book of that month.
And that's fine. We have a short up if you want to see what our top 10 books of the year were.
That's true. Okay, let's get the bracket started.
Let's jump in.
Okay, let's rewind to January 2024.
Okay, my best book of this month was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I was so tickled by this book. Surprisingly so, because I only started getting into contemporary romance very recently, like in the last year. And this one is just so cutesy. It asks the question, what would happen if the son of the President of the United States fell in love with the Prince of England?
What a good question.
I mean, it's such a ridiculous premise, but at the same time, so adorable. I mean, who wouldn't root for that?
Yeah, for sure.
The Star Wars references really got me. And just their two of them, their chemistry was excellent.
And my best book in the month of January was Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenya. This is a book set in future America that centers on incarcerated people who sign up to take part in these gladiator-style like death matches for public entertainment. It's gruesome, it's uncomfortable, but it's very impactful and like really made me think. And I really liked how the author showed, it's got to be like 20 different POVs. So you really got every single angle of this situation. Like you got a little snippet of everybody's viewpoint, which I thought was like really, really powerful. I loved this.
All right, moving on to February. My best book in February was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. I liked it even better than the first one, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I really liked that first one. But in this world, it's sort of an alternate reality, our world, one with fairies in it. And our main character, Emily Wilde, is a professor, and she studies fairies, fairy lore, etc. So in this book particularly, she's trying to build a map of all of the doors into the fairylands. And things are getting complicated because of her little romance with Wendell, which, what a name. And I think one of the main reasons I love this book so much is because Wendell is such a unique male main character and love interest. He's such a soft boy, and I am a sucker for the soft boy main character. I mean, he could still get it done. He
Get
can still
hard.
like behead someone for you if you need him to. But he also likes things to be a particular way. He loves his tea and likes things to be set up all cozy and aesthetic everywhere he goes. And there's something about that that is so appealing.
My month of February was actually not very strong. My choices were limited, and what I went with was Us Against You, which is by Frederick Bachman. This is his sequel to everybody's favorite Beartown. This book, I only gave it 3 stars. It basically just elaborates on the events of the first novel. Beartown is a small Swedish town, and some traumatic events happen revolving around the town's celebrated hockey team. And so, yeah, the second book just basically expands on what happened on these events. And to be honest, I found it a bit repetitive. It's not repetitive, but it's kind of just dragged out. And the characters just didn't work for me the way they did in the first one, with the exception of Benji. Love him to death. But this book kind of made me not want to read the third one.
Did you end up reading the third one?
I didn't, but it was the best of the month.
Okay, so looking at Red, White, and Royal Blue versus Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, this is a nice, easy one for me to start with because Emily Wilde blows it out of the water. So good, and it would be moving forward to the next round.
Okay, and same for me. It's pretty obvious that I preferred Chain Gang All-Stars over Us Against You, so it will also be moving forward to the second round.
All right, so my best book of March was actually a reread. I sort of felt like it might be cheating putting in a reread, but it was the best book. It was the best book. So that book is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and this book is a delight. It's technically YA, but it definitely has some adult themes and heavy topics going on. There's 2 little romances in there, one of which I adore and the other which I hate, but that hate kind of makes the book better. This is basically your classic quest story where our main character, Zelly, who has forbidden magic, teams up with the runaway princess to try to restore magic to the land and overthrow the evil king. If you're a Legendborn fan, you should read this.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I guess I'll be reading that. My pick for March was Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This was a wild card. It was only a 4-star. I apparently did not have that many 5-star reads this year, or they were all at the same time.
You have high standards.
I guess so. But I will say that the audiobook is easily a 5-star. This is probably one of the best audiobooks I've ever heard. The narrator was incredible. She really went all in, and it was super immersive, and I just really, really enjoyed this on audiobook. This is a classic surprise pregnancy story and also has the get with your best friend's brother trope. I guess they just call that best friend's brother. What did they call that?
Best friend's brother.
Yeah. Those 2 combined would not normally be my favorite thing, but I just thought it was really, really cute in this story. And the love interest is truly the most perfect, faultless man I have ever read about. Completely unrealistic, but
of course,
so fun to read about. He was just perfection, and it made it really enjoyable.
That can be refreshing kind of.
Yes,
you know?
He was perfect. Yes.
I know a lot of people are not into the surprise pregnancy trope, but I do think there's a difference when the surprise pregnancy starts at the beginning of the story and not the end.
Which is obviously, I mean? Yes, that was the case here.
Yeah.
The whole plot revolved around her finding out she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And her best friend's brother stepping up to the plate.
Next up is April. And I chose Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Skyward series. And I obviously loved the first book, Skyward, but I actually think I liked Starsight a little bit better. I love the crew that she teams up with in Starsight. They are so lovable and unique, and seeing the world really expand is so fun. His different alien species are so creative. There's one species that is just a smell.
Oh, that is interesting.
They're invisible, but then you just smell cinnamon and you're like, oh, what's up, Kimmy? Their name's not Kimmy.
And my favorite of the month of April was A Promise of Peridot by Kate Golden. This is the second in the Sacred Stones trilogy. This series revolves around our main character, Arwen. She is a human with secret magical healing powers, and her kingdom of Amber is at war with the kingdom of Onyx. And she ends up basically sacrificing herself and saying that she will go to the kingdom of Onyx and provide them with her healing abilities in order for her family to escape the conflict. So this second book obviously just expands on the revelations of the first, and I absolutely loved this. Arwen has a lot of growing up to do in this book. She is grappling with a lot of like very heavy things that she's found out. And I just thought it was really well done. I loved the romance in it as well. And it had an incredible cliffhanger. I was so excited to get to the third book.
It's funny we both picked the second book in a series for this month.
Second books are the best. Okay, so now we can do March Against April, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So for me, that's Children of Blood and Bone versus Starsight. I haven't thought about this before now. Okay. Due to the fact that Children of Blood and Bone was a reread for me, I think I will move forward Starsight.
Okay. Ready or Not versus A Promise of Peridot. That's going to have to be A Promise of Peridot. Easy.
Sounds good. Congrats on breaking your habit of saying A Promise in Peridot.
It took you reminding me 20,000 times for it to finally sink in, and I got tired of you telling me that.
Yeah, that's really my bad. Okay, and then funny enough, it's a funny story, guys, because for May, we picked the same book. And it's Funny Story by Emily Henry.
That's right. Which we read at the same time.
We did. We took an amazing little beach weekend, and it rained the whole weekend, and it was great. We had the best time just reading and staying in.
This was a 5-star read for both of us.
Absolutely. It was my favorite Emily Henry that I've read so far.
This story revolves around Daphne, who gets broken up with by her fiance for her fiance's childhood BFF. She also gets kicked out of their house, and she ends up having to move in with her fiance's new girl's ex-boyfriend, Miles. So both of the exes end up in the same house. Thus begins the funny story of how Miles and Daphne end up in love.
The audiobook is narrated by Julia Whalen, who we have said many times we adore.
Yeah.
And listening to her narrate this book makes it feel like a little gab session with your girls, you know?
It does. Yeah. And you were obsessed with Miles.
Miles is my Emily Henry man.
Yeah.
Aaron's is Gus.
Which obviously is an issue, but we won't get into that. Okay, so we're moving on to June, which ended up being one of my best reading months of the year. There were several 5-star reads, which made choosing the top book of this month really difficult. I did end up choosing A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. You guys know how much I love this story. This story revolves around Jack, who is a bard, and he is called back to his home, which is the island of Cadence, after having been away for the past 10 years. On the island, a bunch of young girls have gone missing. So the laird's daughter asks Jack to come home and sing to the island spirits so that they can ask the spirits if they know what's happened to the girls.
Special bard powers.
Special bard powers. I absolutely love it. I won't go on. It was definitely my favorite. I will just have to quickly mention that my honorable mention goes to The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. I also read this month, and it was another 5-star read. It's a historical fiction based on a midwife named Martha Ballard, and I loved it.
This was a good reading month for you.
Yeah, it was.
Not as much for me. It wasn't bad, but I didn't technically have any 5 stars this month. So my best book of the month was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, which I gave 4 stars, and I did really enjoy. I prefer her book Just for the Summer, but I read that the previous month when I read Funny Story, and it wasn't better than Funny Story, so it didn't make the list. The premise of this book sounds like a Hallmark movie. Our main character, Alexis, is a high-strung city girl. She has a high-stress job. She's a doctor, and her whole family are doctors that are famous for running this fancy hospital and being the best doctors at the hospital. I don't know anything about doctors. She's got a high-powered job, all right? She's
This is the longest explanation of the most basic fact that the main character is a doctor.
She's a doctor. Okay, what else do you want from me? And the love interest is Daniel, and he's a hot carpenter who is trying to like rebuild his like bed and breakfast, essentially, like get his bed and breakfast off the ground. I mean, if that's not a Hallmark movie.
For sure.
Her car breaks down, and that's their meet cute. It's adorable, and there's a baby goat.
So I'm assuming for you, Funny Story beats your second favorite Abby Jimenez book.
Yes, it does. Funny Story.
Okay. For me, what do I have? A River Enchanted versus Funny Story. That's really hard.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Look, I'm going to have to say A River Enchanted because I loved Funny Story, but I've read Emily Henry and I love Emily Henry, and A River Enchanted was so different for me.
My July best book was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This month, I powered through all of Stephanie Garber's Caraval series and all of her Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And my favorite out of all of them was this book, the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And the reason is Jax. He is hot. He's so hot. I love
like
him.
The name, though. I can't get over the name Jax. It's like a Jax in the box. Jax in the box.
Yeah, I can see that.
Do you know what I mean?
It doesn't really bother me, but I get it.
Yeah.
And this is the one that you have been seeing all those TikToks about the nickname that he has.
Fox.
For Evangeline, which is Little Fox.
Little Fox. Yes, I have seen this.
It's
everywhere.
a little bit of a cringy nickname, but
I don't mind it as much as like Little Bird and stuff.
right. I actually think it's not. I'm not like, oh my God, it's so cute, but it doesn't give me the ick either. It's fine. Jax is the classic like bad boy that you shouldn't like, but you do. The other main character, Evangeline, is so likable and sweet. She has this like positivity about her and determination. She never gives up. She's so sweet, and she has pink hair.
I love that. I also had another really strong reading month for July, but my favorite had to be The Hero of Ages, which is the final book in the Mistborn 1 series by Brandon Sanderson. I don't have a love-hate relationship. That is too strong of a term.
She's not a huge fangirl of Brandon Sanderson.
The thing is, like, I just find them a little slow, and the endings are always fantastic, and they always hit. And that was certainly, like, this was the best book of the month. This is the only book this year that made me cry. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I absolutely love how religion is utilized in this series. It taught me a lot. I found it incredibly fascinating. I just struggle with getting to the avalanche part.
That's fair.
Of the Sanderlanche or whatever.
It's maybe not your preferred pacing.
Right.
All right, August, our birthday month.
Yes.
I again had no 5-star reads this month.
Neither did I, technically. My best of the month was Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. This is about a recently deceased woman, Delphi, who meets the one in the waiting room of the afterlife.
So like purgatory type thing?
Kind of, like, basically.
Okay.
And she's given a second chance at life if she can find this guy in the real world. But he doesn't remember meeting her before.
Is he dead too?
There was a mistake, and he ends up in purgatory for a second, and then he gets thrown back into the real world. And she's like, wait. And so they say, well, you can go back down there and try to find him. And if you get him to kiss you, then you can stay back on Earth again.
Okay.
It's hilarious. It's such a fun premise. And more than anything, I just really liked the main character, Delphi, and I loved her character arc. The author just did like a really good job of making a very poignant book in a funny romance.
Out of like a kind of like
hilariously
kind of
dumb
ridiculous premise.
Yeah, it was really good. It was 4.5 stars. I can't remember why I took a point off, but I did.
Must have been missing a little something. Mine was The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, which I also gave 4.5 stars.
Did you really? You gave it 4.5?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
And I liked it a lot, as you can probably tell. I have since realized that I may have slightly overscored this one.
Yeah.
Let me explain. So The God of the Woods centers around a summer camp and the community that works at and owns the summer camp. And a girl goes missing one summer, and she happens to be the daughter of the family that owns the camp. And 14 years exactly prior, her little brother had gone missing from the same area. So there's a mystery afoot. And the summer camp vibes just swept me away. It was August when I was reading this. I myself went to summer camp many summers as a kid, and the nostalgia hit me like a ton of bricks when I was reading this.
Yeah.
That's really what I loved so much about this book. The author, Liz Moore, captured that feeling of being like a preteen, the cusp of being old enough to do what you want, but you can't yet.
Yeah.
And you're at summer camp surrounded by a bunch of other kids. She captured that feeling so perfectly, and it brought back a lot of memories. I did also enjoy the mystery and feel genuinely caught up in it and surprised by the ending. Erin also read this book, but you didn't care for it as much.
No, I just found it, a bit overhyped. I didn't think the mystery was that good, and I definitely wasn't super into the ending.
I do think the nostalgia kind of
Clouded your judgment.
Yeah. It made me score it higher than maybe it would have otherwise.
Okay, so now we put July up against August. So I have The Hero of Ages versus The Love of My Afterlife. That's a pretty easy one for me. The Hero of Ages has got to go through.
Great. And for me, The Ballad of Never After versus The God of the Woods. It will be The Ballad of Never After.
There we go. Moving on.
Fall time,
which actually, surprisingly, was not a good reading time for me.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's so shocking because I was so excited.
It's usually the best reading time of the year.
Yeah. To be fair, September I did okay. My pick is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This is the third and final in her Cruel Prince series. And it was actually my favorite of the series. This series follows Jude, who is a human who has been forced to grow up in the fairy world, and she's just basically trying to find her place. And it also follows Cardan, Prince Cardan, who is the cruel and often forgotten son of the Fairy King. It is ridiculous. It's like everybody's mean in it, but in like a very compelling way, or like I was really like into it. And the final book was just so good and so well paced. I gave it 5 stars.
Wow. Okay. So everyone was mean, but you liked them? Is that
what I didn't like them. I don't know how to explain it. If you've read the series, you know what I'm saying.
My September pick was Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the sequel to Gideon the Ninth. And I absolutely loved Gideon, of course, but I only wanted to put Tamsin Muir on here once. And I actually think I liked Harrow the Ninth maybe a hair more.
This is insane. I'm learning. You like all the second books this year.
Yeah, there was something about that second book because in the first book, there's a lot of setup and getting to know the characters.
Yeah.
By the second book, I understand the characters and I'm attached.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'm rooting for them. Gideon the Ninth is a sci-fi / fantasy. I don't know what it is. It's special. It's mostly a locked door murder mystery.
Oh, what? I don't think I've heard you say this so many times and that's never clicked for me.
I mean, it's like a locked door murder mystery in space with magic necromancy powers involved. And then the second one is nothing like the first one. It has a totally different style, a different POV. It's really a case study in grief, and it's extremely heart-wrenching, but also very funny. I do want to say, I have talked a lot about this series on this channel, and I absolutely love it, but it is not for everyone. This is not one that I would just blanket recommend. It's very dark and grisly. There's a lot of body horror. The writing is very dense.
Yes.
You will have to look up words a lot.
I've been told this by people other than you that the author must have had a thesaurus and used it the entire time. Yeah.
And the humor is extremely funny to me, but it's a very distinct brand of humor that I don't think will work for everyone. But if the necromancers in space with kind of a lesbian flair to it and the locked door murder mystery aspect like is intriguing to you, give it a go because this series is mind-blowingly good. My best book of October was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. It's sci-fi, it's thought-provoking, it's pretty crazy. It's set 20 years after a pandemic essentially ended the world. Like, everybody died, and humanity is struggling to survive. Emily St. John Mandel, her writing style is so poetic. There are a lot of POVs. You're jumping back and forth in the timeline from when the pandemic first hit to 20 years later, sometimes in between. It's a beautiful story. It was scary. The first couple of chapters, the last paragraph would just give me like
Shivers.
whole body shivers. Just heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's feeling a little bit
Close to
bit
home.
too real,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. But it was a 5-star for you, right?
Absolutely a 5-star. It's outstanding.
Well, sadly, I had a pretty crappy reading month, and I ended up putting my top book as A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. But this was only a 3.5-star read for me. If I was just rating the first half of this book, it probably would have been a 5 because I really enjoyed the first half. But the second just became so predictable and kind of fell apart for me.
That's a shame.
This is a romantasy book based on Norse mythology. The main character, Freya, is revealed to be this foretold shield maiden, and she's supposed to like be the person that unites the country together under a ruler. So the Jarl forces her to marry him and forces his son to be her protector because all the other clans, everybody's fighting to have her or kill her because of this prophecy. And the romance happens between Freya and the Jarl's son who's forced to protect her, which is kind of weird.
So her husband's son?
Exactly, yes. It's kind of weird, but like it's a marriage in name only, so I think she gets away with it because they're only married so that
do they do it?
No.
Okay.
Because he also
That
has
makes it
another
a lot.
wife.
Okay, great. That makes it a lot less weird.
But
Thank you.
It's still like the whole book, they're like, but I can't because I'm married to your dad. And it's like, well, yeah, that is weird.
That's so weird.
I think the main problem with this book is it's such a cool premise, but it ended up still feeling incredibly formulaic to me by the end. There's some big reveals. I was like, yeah, could have guessed that. And also, none of the characters are likable.
Ooh.
None of them. You have a hard time by the end rooting for anyone. And you have to have somebody to root for to make it worthwhile. So this was a 3.5 star for me, but still the best of the month, which can tell you something about the month of October.
Yeah. Well, between Harrow the Ninth and Station 11, this is the first one that has challenged me because I love both of these books so much. But, I mean, Harrow the Ninth is my obsession.
Yeah.
Like, these Locked Tomb series, I'm still looking up theories.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Literally almost every day.
Okay.
So Harrow the Ninth will be moving forward.
Okay, fair. And I'm between The Queen of Nothing and A Fate Inked in Blood, and mine's obviously going to be The Queen of Nothing.
Gotta be.
Okay. I haven't had really too many hard...
The next round will get you.
Yeah, it will actually.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. Okay, so then into the month of November, I had a good reading month, and my favorite pick ended up being The Wedding People by Allison Espach. This was a full 5-star read for me. I was completely delighted by this book.
Good word, delighted.
It was, and I was not expecting to read it, so like the whole thing was just so enjoyable. This book revolves around Phoebe, who hits rock bottom. Her husband leaves her, and she decides to just drop everything and get a one-way ticket to this fancy hotel in, I think, Rhode Island that she had always looked at, and just sort of like splurge on herself before
girl.
ending it all.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. But when she gets there, she realizes the entire rest of the hotel has been rented out for a week-long wedding. She's the only
This is such a good
person.
premise.
I know. She's the only person. And the bride is obviously pissed off because she thinks she's reserved the whole hotel. So Phoebe and the bride end up forming this unexpected bond. And Phoebe ends up like becoming a part of the wedding party for the week. And it's just
That's
such
awesome.
a hilarious book. And the thing that makes it so good is that Phoebe is an incredible main character. She's incredibly intelligent. She's incredibly competent. She's hilarious. And I just really, really she resonated with me, and I wanted the best for her. And I just thought this book was so cute. I love how it ended. It was an easy 5-star.
I also had a great reading month in November, and my best of was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. And I picked this up on a total whim. It was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Award. Something about it caught my eye, and it was so good, so fun to read. Our main character, Anna, is sort of like a Sherlock Holmes character. She's a detective, and she has all these special reasoning abilities. You know, in Sherlock, when you see him do like the mind palace stuff and there's like math around his head, that's pretty much what's going on with her.
Okay.
She wears a blindfold at all times, and she does not visit the sites of the crimes she investigates. She sends out our other main character, whose name Aaron will Google for me. His name is Din, and Din is also specially enhanced. He's like genetically enhanced by the government to be really good at helping investigators. And by that I mean he has a perfect memory. So he visits the sites of the crimes so that later he can bring all of the clues and evidence to Anna, and then she actually solves the mystery. It sounds like it wouldn't work, but it does, and it's cool.
Interesting.
This is also a fantasy world where giant monsters come up out of the sea to attack the land and try to kill everyone every now and then. It's cool. There's a lot going on.
Okay, so now we'll move on to December. My best book of the month was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I read both of the books in this duology this month, but I preferred Six of Crows just slightly. This is set in Bardugo's Grisha-verse, set in Ketterdam. It's completely separate from Shadow and Bone, but there is some crossover. And I'll be honest, I have watched the show, which was quite helpful. But I have not read Shadow and Bone. I probably will after this, actually. Six of Crows follows this merry band of misfit bandits as essentially they tried to pull off the biggest heist ever.
Ooh.
For a huge payout. It's YA. All of the characters are under the age of 18, which I think was probably the only con for me. I kind of just wish they were in their mid-20s.
That's a con.
Yeah, it was a little unrealistic to think this like 16-year-old was.
Is this the one where you were saying you just in your mind made them all in their 20s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because essentially in the show they are like they're in their 20s. So I just pictured the characters from the show. But regardless, it was so well paced. I loved the ensemble cast. She jumps through POVs of everybody, and they're all super endearing. I really enjoyed seeing all their points of view, and I just thought this was like a really well-polished book.
I love a heist story.
Yeah, it was like fun. You know, there was like a clear goal, and there were lots of maps, which I like.
And my best book of the month to round out the year, could have seen this coming a mile away. It was Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, the 5th book in the Stormlight Archives and the final book of Era 1. Woo!
What are you going to say about this?
That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out. There are so many videos going into the Stormlight Archives that I'm not going to bother like trying to tell you what it's about, but it's an epic fantasy tale, okay? With multiple main characters, and by the time you get to the 5th book, nobody is where they started. Everyone is practically a different person by now. So I can't say much without it being a spoiler. I will say, for a book that was so hyped up, so highly anticipated, it absolutely exceeded my expectations personally. I adored it. I mean, I sobbed, just tears, every day that I read this. And it took me a while to read because it's huge.
It took you like a week, Lena, and it's like 1,000 pages.
It took like 10 days.
Oh my God.
The book hangover for that type of thing is just like, woo!
Especially the end of a series. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, gets ya.
Okay, so between Wind and Truth and The Tainted Cup, is that even a contest? I was about to say it is a contest, but probably not actually.
I mean, any other pairing, I would choose The Tainted Cup.
Right.
But after you put in all of this time into a series like the Stormlight Archives, it's pretty hard to top that. So it will be Wind and Truth for me.
Okay. And mine is between The Wedding People and Six of Crows. Both 5 stars. This is probably one of the toughest of the year for me. but I think I'm going to go with The Wedding People because of how much I enjoyed it.
Now we get into the hard round.
Now I understand why you wanted a visual.
Okay, round 2. This will be harder but quicker because we don't need to explain the books again. We just have to choose between them like they're our children and only one can be the favorite.
That is incredibly dramatic.
So my first matchup is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands versus Starsight. Whoa! Immediately, this is so much harder than the first round. I think I will be giving it to Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands.
I would not have expected this. Okay.
It's tough.
Okay, and mine is between Chain Gang All-Stars and A Promise of Peridot, which it should be difficult. And I think this is surprising, but I'm actually just going to give it to Chain Gang. Honestly, I think that I didn't really like the third, A Reign of Rose, very much, and that's kind of skewing my judgment.
Yeah, I could see that.
But it is what it is.
I mean,
I know it now, so yeah. Okay, and next up for you, we have Funny Story versus Never After.
The Ballad of Never
After.
The
Ballad of Never After. I've obviously written this in shorthand.
Yeah. Okay, this one is a little bit easier because just based on pure enjoyment, I'm going with Funny Story.
Okay. And I have River Enchanted versus Hero of Ages.
Woo!
And I'm going to go with a River Enchanted. Sorry. I
saw that coming a mile away.
I loved A Hero of Ages, but overall.
But the way you talk about A River Enchanted.
Yeah.
And what a matchup. Harrow the Ninth versus Wind and Truth. This truly feels like
that is literally, yeah. I don't know what you're going to pick here.
I don't know what I'm going to pick here. Honestly. Oh my God. This is a hard one. This is really hard. It's Harrow the Ninth.
Oh,
it is.
Oh, okay. I think it should be. The way that you've talked about the Locked Tomb series this year has been
a new discovery.
Yeah.
And you know what? There was something so thrilling about realizing that I had discovered a new favorite book. Do you know what I mean?
It's exciting. That's how I felt about A River Enchanted. I almost feel like that like skews it too much because then you kind of amp it up too much. But maybe not.
Maybe not. I mean, it sounds silly, but you almost start to think after years of reading that, oh, I know I've read all my favorite books.
Yeah.
And then realizing, oh, there's more favorite books out there.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
It's such a good feeling.
Okay. So mine is The Queen of Nothing versus Wedding People. And again, it's going to be Wedding People. I'm not having too much trouble with this.
I'm wanting to read Wedding People now. Yeah, so now we have just 3. It's going to be head to head, and we're going to pick one.
This is dumb. What?
Okay.
Is this how it works?
That's how I plan to do it in my reading journal.
So now we're just going to choose between the 3?
Tell us in the comments how we effed up the bracket this time, okay? Save me from myself. This isn't as fun.
I know.
Okay. My best book of the year was Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Is that anticlimactic? I don't know.
So it was between Emily Wilde, Funny Story, and Harrow the Ninth.
That does make sense as a top 3 for me.
It does make sense as a top 3. So can we also just say that was your top 3 of the year?
Yes.
Okay. And for me, we have Chain Gang All-Stars, A River Enchanted, and The Wedding People, which I actually think potentially is close to the top 3 for me.
It's pretty representative of your tastes.
That's true. But out of the 3 of them, I think it's actually going to be The Wedding People.
Oh, wow.
I think. I don't know.
Immediately second guesses.
Yeah, The Wedding People. I really liked this book.
Awesome.
Okay.
Love it. The best books of the year. We have now gained closure on 2024's reading list, don't you think?
Yes. This is the last wrap up of the year we will be providing you with. I'm sick of talking about my 2024 books.
We have talked about these books to death.
Let's just quickly, I know this is a long video, but like what are your goals? We kind of had this conversation at lunch today. What are you looking to do with your reading in 2025?
That's such a great question. I am definitely going to avoid picking up things at random just because I've seen them on TikTok or Instagram, especially ones that I know nothing about the plot and I just see the cover and think like, I'll give it a go.
You see it enough times that you're just like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I did that, it was a mistake this past year. So
yeah,
it is what it is. I love fantasy and sci-fi, and that will be the focus of this year.
I will agree with that. And I mean, this will come as no surprise, but I think that that means picking up less romantasy for me and more sci-fi, more fantasy. I enjoyed Six of Crows so much, and that would just be considered a YA fantasy
Right.
novel with a romance subplot. And I actually think that I'm gravitating way more towards that, or like A River Enchanted. So I'm going to do more fantasy, less romantasy, and take my time.
Right.
I like was saying to Elena today, I just want to savor these books a little bit and really enjoy them. If I like it, I don't necessarily want to
Like
blitz
rush
through
through
it.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to like just take my time, and I find myself even like rereading a couple pages to just make sure that I really like gotten it. So we'll see if that lasts. I mean, I set a goal of 75 books this year,
Yeah.
so
Mine was 100 again. So setting that intention, I think, will help us.
yeah, that wraps up our 2024 pseudo bracket, where we somehow whittled it down to our favorite book of the year. If you liked this video, please like this video, give us a comment, let us know what your favorite book of the year was. What was your best reading month or your highest rated reading month? Because for some reason, I'm very curious about that now.
Yeah, me too. And subscribe to our channel if you are not already subscribed. We so appreciate every subscriber.
And until our next video, we'll see you later.
See you soon.